Within our souls, we all possess a dream which lay dormant until intrigue strikes its match and sets the torch we carry ablaze, leading us down the path of the unknown towards our dreams. As coaches who are former high-performance athletes, our personal experiences have shown us that a coach, parent, or even a fellow athlete have the potential to either illuminate or extinguish the dreams of young athletes. Nothing is lost from the candle which lights another. We are here to share our stories and our passion to illuminate the champion within, empowering coaches, parents, and athletes to keep the flame of their dreams burning eternally. You are listening to Illuminating Champions with Michal and Ashley Anton.
Welcome to another episode of Illuminating Champions. For our first-time listeners, my name is Ashley, and I'm here with my husband, Michal.
Hey, how are you guys?
We also have a very special guest. He is our personal coach and our brand artist. His name is Mark Patterson. Hi, Mark.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Today's episode is entitled Athletic Culture Shift, and it's all about the shift in society in general and how it affects athletes and the changes that need to be made within athletics in order to really reach athletes on a deeper level. Remember that they are first human more than that they are a product of your work. And we're going to highlight the key similarities and differences within the American system and foreign systems. Of course, it is closer to our heart, America and Romania, since those are the two countries that we are both coming from. So that's what we will highlight the most. But of course, worldwide, there are going to be similarities between those two systems that people can relate to depending on where you're from. So Mark is going to get us started off by asking us some questions and helping us highlight this topic. So why don't you go ahead, Mark?
Sure. Well, the idea of growing up in two different cultures is interesting in itself. But then you said that all your coaching systems were different. Both had similarities with coaches being this way or that, but you talked about coaches being distant-minded. If you could explain that a little.
So learning what it was like for Michal to grow up in Romania and being coached in Romania, and then thinking about how I was coached in America, I guess the closest thing that in similarity was that our coaches approached us with a distant mind to us as humans. We were more like a product of their work. And of course, yes, when coaching someone, how they do in their performance, it is the product of your work. But you're working with a human. You're not working with an inanimate object. So your approach to your quote product has to be a humanistic one, and it has to be a wholesome one. And our coaches, he grew up in a totally different culture societally than I did. And we also have an age difference. So there's that factor too. But, they just really were down to business with, you need to perform this way and I need you to do well so I look good. And that's the primary thing that I care about. I don't really care too much how you feel during that process. I don't care how it's going to affect you later on, the way that I speak to you or the way that I approach you or the way that I treat you. I just care how you do right now so that I look good as a coach. I think that's a similarity between the two systems. And of course, as you'll learn throughout this episode, and many of you are probably familiar already, the American system was really built upon foreign coaches. The American system really took off once Bela Karolyi and Mara Karolyi immigrated here. They actually defected here from Romania. And then they, of course, developed Mary Lou Retton right after they developed Nadia. And that kind of set us off on this whirlwind of world-class gymnastics within America. I'll let you go ahead deeper into this, but that's really how our system was built here. And they just, they never helped. We'll touch on this in a minute, but they didn't really help them adapt to the way life was socially in America, and they did carry in some big differences in their approach from Romania, brought it in America, and never really adapted. And then this did cause a lot of problems way further down the road that we're now learning about today, and you hear more about today on the news or just in gymnastics culture in
Yeah,
general.
but these problems, they was allowed by the system.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
I understand. It's not like just the coaches, they did wrong.
Yeah.
Those foreign coaches, the system allowed them to do wrong, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaches. So we brought Romanian coaches in, and they brought their process with them
Methods.
of
The methods.
yeah, focusing on that, and then so
Let's
that's
say, like, look, when Bella and Marta Caroli, when they came to America and they started developing the gymnastic system here, they took actually the Romanian gymnastic system and they changed it to American society a little bit.
They
Understand?
modified it.
They modified it to like the business aspect of it, because in my country, obviously, like, especially at the time, everything was governmental. There was no business, private business, and the kids don't pay to do gymnastics. The parents don't matter. Like here, like you care, like you have to care about the family. You have to care about the kids. They pay you. The parents are involved. In my country at the time, parents was not involved.
Mm-hmm.
The kid was drafted from school or kindergarten, and she was put in gymnastics. And after that, the coaches had more control on the child life than the parents, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought that here, and they had to change it, because here in America, obviously, the family is involved. It's a different thing. They have to pay. They have to make money. The business aspects kicks in. But they brought the Romanian system almost to everything and add the business aspect on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We also
but they brought it in a society that was different.
Yeah. So you also talked about their different expectations. So
mm-hmm.
what's the American expectation versus the Romanian expectation?
I guess we could each take a turn.
You take your turn. I let her first.
I mean, like I said, both were talking about our personal experiences, which of course are the personal experiences of many other people growing up in either system. So in America, when I was little, and then even up until today, you still are that product of your coach's work. But of course, since gymnastics is a business, and we have many opportunities in this country, it's not like you're drafted to do a sport. You're really doing a sport by your choosing or by your parent introducing you to the sport. You have a wide array of children coming into the gym with a wide array of interest level. So some of them walk in knowing I want to go to the Olympics, and other ones walk in and they want to have fun that day, and they want to see their friends from school, or they're just interested in learning how to do a little bit of gymnastics. So there's not like this forceful, you need to walk through the door and everyone here has to make it to the Olympics, and this is the definition of your life in America. Although, of course,
sports start recreational in America.
Right, sports start recreationally. So the pressure is a little bit more individualized, I guess, which is nice, and it's more accurate because everybody is, their own person. So that part I think is good. But that's very different from in Romania. So if you talk about a little bit,
not just Romania, like all the dictatorial governments,
right.
Like my country, like we was a dictatorial government, like Russia, Romania, China, North Korea, Cuba, Vietnam, wherever you go, it's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
But in my country, it was different because, like in America, like I said, it's recreational. Like a parent is going to bring a child to a sport, doesn't matter if it's gymnastics or whatever sport it is, for recreational purposes. Like the girl is 5 years old and she wants to spend some energy, right? She's jumping up and down in the house. They're going to bring her to a gymnastics class where the parent doesn't always walk in the gym with the idea, I want her to be the next Nastya Lukin or I don't know, like Mary Lou Retton, like she said about Mary Lou Retton, like it's not like that here. Here they come in the gym and they want to learn a cartwheel, they want to do a flip, and that's all. Where in my country, sports, most of the time, 90% of the sports was to go to the Olympics, to represent your country, to be the best.
That's your only purpose
Yes.
of doing sports, is to go be an
Like
Olympic
at the time
champion.
when I did gymnastics back in 1980s, when I started gymnastics, that's how sports was. And if you like a champion like Nadia, she was so used by the government, her image, to like a propaganda kind of, you know what I mean? Like every little girl in my country wants to be the next Nadia, because they will present Nadia like a hero of the country, and even if a parent decides, oh, I want my daughter to do gymnastics, the goal of that parent was that his daughter was going to be the same Nadia Comaneci, and she's going to have the same, how to say it correct in English, she's going to get from the government the same type of incentives as like Nadia. She's going to get that attention. She's going to be famous like that. She's going to have a house. She's going to have a good job, governmental job. They're going to have more food than other people. And
yeah, the drive is different within the two societally. And I think for you, like you always say, Olympians are like soldiers for their country in a war without weapons. And I think that's a really great description of and depiction of what it's like when you go to the Olympics. Part of that journey, but that was your sole purpose for everybody across the board.
You can make a comparison with the American society and my society at the time. At the time, my soldiers was draft. We will be drafted into military, where in America, your soldiers get a contract. They do represent their country. They do go there, defend their country patriotically. They love this country.
But by their own will.
By their own will, by their own choice, and they get paid for that. Where in my country, they draft you and you had to go. Didn't matter you want to be a soldier or not. Nobody asked you, you just have to do military service. You turn 18, boom. It was the same thing with sports. Like if a coach will come in the beginning of the school in September, will come to school to look at the first graders, and he will notice that you have skills for, I don't know, whatever sport. Let's say track and field, you can run 100 meters very fast. They will put you in track and field and you will run the 100 meters, and they will find ways to make your family do that. If that coach look at you and be like, wow, this kid has so much talent, like they can be, then they will find a way in society for you to be. Understand? Where in America, you have kids that are talented, and I told you, I have in my gym, I have girls in classes, recreational classes. I have one girl, I wish she would be like, I want to compete gymnastics. She doesn't want to. She's so talented, she's so good, but she doesn't want to compete gymnastics. She wants to do it for fun. She just likes the fun of the sport.
So I think, like,
1 second, that girl in my country will be at the Olympic Junior Center now, like training.
Yeah, she had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in one way.
At the time, now it's a little different. But at the time when I grew up, that's how it was.
I think in one way, it's nice that everybody is having the same expectation, because you walk in knowing exactly, like, it is what it is. You're here to go to the Olympics. Everything's the same across the board in that aspect. Whereas here, since it's so open and so free, a lot of coaches can be extra distant and not really give their all to their athletes, because it's kind of, let's look and see what's going to happen. Like, the expectation sometimes becomes too lax, or then you have the opposite, where the coach has a large ego and they get obsessed with making an Olympian. So it's both have advantages and disadvantages to the way that they are.
Past episodes, like, no, a coach has to coach without the ego. His ego doesn't matter. Like, okay, you have an ego. You cannot not have an ego, because otherwise you're not going to desire to do anything good. You're not going to desire to do something, to achieve something, understand? Without the ego. Ego is what drives us to want to be successful. But your ego cannot get in the way of you coaching the athlete. You have to coach the athlete ego. I said it in the past. You have to coach without your ego. Because if you let your ego get in, then that athlete is going to become a product, like an object product.
Like, oh, sorry, you had asked me before, Mark, what it was like when I was little starting gymnastics. And I remember on my first day in the car with my mom before we got there, asking her a million questions. And I had just watched the 1996 Olympics, like I always talk about. And the last thing I asked her was, well, what if I have a coach from a different country? And she was like, what? Why would you even think about that? And I was like, but what if I do? What if they're like Chinese or from somewhere else? And her response was, oh, well, that's good. That'll be even better than if they're American. And like, I did not understand. I'm like, why? I didn't understand that, of course, as a young child. But it was because she already knew, of course, Bella and Marta came here and developed really our whole system and our whole legacy. But also, she knew in other countries what Michal was talking about. The expectation for everybody going into a sport was so high that every single person, whether they became Olympic champion or not, they were such a profound athlete and received so much education within that sport up to a certain level. And then to even become a coach is so much, it's incomparably harder in foreign countries than it is here. You're not just walking in and asking for a job. Like, there's massive amounts of requirements to even be eligible to go to school to want to become a coach. So she knew like the education level in how to teach skills was so much higher that if I did have a foreign coach, I would be off to advantageous
here,
start.
I'm going to tell you something too. Like, that mentality has a downside too, because the downside of that mentality was that you had to win all the time. Like, the only time that someone cared about you was if you was the champion. Understand? And then had a bad side, and then like you didn't have option. Nobody cared about how you feel. Nobody cared about, even if you have fever or like, you had to train. Understand?
Yeah, I remember. So sorry to bring up like Russian athletes at this point in time, but they're part of the history. I remember one time,
people have to accept it. One second, I have to explain that. Like, we don't like
the war.
Obviously, like for me, I'm very close to what happened in Ukraine because I'm from there. And like I said, my father had to run from Moldova his family back in 1940 when Russia took my country. They took Moldova and they took Bukovina, part of Bukovina, that's now in Ukraine, South Ukraine. My family has to run from there. Then they grew up under the Russian occupation for 14 years, from 44 to 58. Then obviously I have a different feeling for that. I don't like it, but in the end of the day also, we cannot just exclude the history that the Russian athletes wrote through the Olympic sports, because it's not their fault, especially the past athletes. It's not, we can just take them out of the history book.
What I was going to say was, you just said like they don't care if you have fever or this or that. You have to go to training and you're expected that it's your best performance no matter what. I remember one time someone was interviewing Aliyah Mustafina and they were like, what's one reason why you wouldn't go to the gym? And she said, death.
Yeah, but she was very serious about it.
She was that serious.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I told you, like my coach asked me one time in the gym. I told him, I think like I can do something and I need help, which was like very rare and very brave for me to say that. And he looks at me, it's like, oh, you need help? You want Russian help? Like, I look at him, I was like, what? It's like, do you know how Russian help is? I said, and now I'm confused. I didn't want to give a wrong answer, and get slapped. I'm like, I don't know, coach. And he's like, you don't know, we teach you. You cannot do it, we help you do it. You don't want to do it, we make you do it. Then what you want? I was like, well, I'm doing it. I'm like, it's okay.
But we make you is like we force you.
I don't want to get to the making doing it, right?
You got motivated.
Because that's how that motivation. I saw Olympic champions in my country in track, and I saw them like becoming Olympic champion, and I see them like in camps sitting down and talking to other people and hearing them like how they hate the sport and they don't want to do it and this and that, and they didn't have an option, but they become Olympic champion. Understand? Like if those girls will have an option, they will quit the sport, never go to the Olympics, maybe. And even in gymnastics, like you see girls, I will see girls in the gym, and you see the coaches, like how they treat them, and you see them crying after, but they still stay in the gym, they still come back, they still, they didn't have an option to quit. Where in America that will not happen. Like in America, you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. Like you asked me in the past, what I'm gonna do. Like if someone, like I see a girl that's talented, and I want to coach her to go to the Olympics, and then she wants to quit. She wants to quit. She wants to quit. I give her high five. Good luck. Wish all the best. Like I mean it. And that's it. I can't do nothing. It's free. It's a free country, right? You live in America. It's a free society. Like you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. We tried. You didn't like it. That's it. There's no hard feelings. Like that's why I said the coaches should not have ego. Like when your ego is not there, there's no hard feelings. Because if you let your ego in, then yeah, you're gonna have hard feelings.
Well, did you understand the difference when you immigrated to the U.S.? Did you have any idea of how it was going to be before you got here?
I came to America because I actually came here because I want a different thing. I want to change. I didn't want to be part of that system, understand? I actually had a big fight with the Romanian Gymnastics Federation before I came here. But that's another story. But I came here for that because I want to be me. I want to do things different. I want to show that things can be done different. And I knew that in America, you have that freedom. That's the idea I came in here with. But then I came here, and to be honest, was not really much different than my country. Understand? Psychologically, yes. Yeah, you don't hit kids in the gym, and you don't, but still, like the coaches, they don't talk correctly. They have behavior that it's detrimental to the athlete, like the way they talk to the kids, the way they act with the kids. Like I will go to competition and watch, and I will see a girl like falling off the beam or like doing a mistake on bars, and the coach just turn around and walk away. I'm like, that's as abusive as you, like, I don't know, like pushing her, or like it's the same. It's actually more because it's emotional, understand?
Yeah.
It's not physical. Like physical pain goes away pretty fast, understand? But the emotional pain stays there long. If you don't have the tools to take it out of your heart and out of your mind, it's going to be there forever. It's going to follow you. Like if I look now back in time, for example, I have a good memory. I can remember times when my coach physically slapped me or hit me or beat me, understand? But the things that hurt me emotionally, like if I think about it, is not the beating, the physical beating. Is the emotional, understand? Is the words, the swear, the denigration, you know what I mean? Those are things that, like, when I look back, I'm like, I still feel that anger, pain, that gets me upset about it. Yeah, I remember that he hit me with a stick. Other things I remember, but
and I think you feel the pain from the words too. It's not just what was said to you that you take it to heart and believe it. It's that in that moment that person didn't care about you.
Besides this, as a child, as a young athlete, we talk about young athletes in sports, sorry to interrupt you. They don't make they don't have the tools to understand the coach that, in that moment the coach was just upset, and maybe my coach, for example, called me an idiot or retard or stupid or moron, like words like that. And those are nice words in English, put it that way. Like if I translate motamo from Romanian to English, what my coach used to tell me, sometimes it's like it's very, very embarrassing for you as a child to hear it in front of other people. But you don't have the tools as a child to look at that person and be like, oh, he's just an adult that's mad and he just threw the words out, maybe without a meaning behind, understand? It doesn't really mean that. Right? And you take it to your heart, and then hurts. And then think about it, that was me in a communist society.
Right.
But think about a child in America that's not a society like that. Like for me, it was like that. Excuse me a second. That's where the difference is too, because for me, the whole society was like that. I understand. Was not much difference how the coach treated me in the gym than how the teacher treated me in school. or the parents at home, or the neighbors, or the driver in the subway, or whatever. Like, that's how it was. Like, I did something wrong, I got reprimanded.
Reprimanded, yeah.
Yes, verbally and physically. Like, I expected. It was something that I expect. Was part of the life.
So that was the part of the
Where in America,
Romanian
it's not.
culture. That was the Romanian culture, you're saying?
I don't know if it's not Romanian culture. I think it was the same thing in Russia, Serbia, Yugoslavia at the time,
Just that
Bulgaria.
part of the world, yeah.
Was just how it was. I think the whole part of Eastern Europe was like that. It's not just my country was like that.
I see.
You know, and you knew as a child, like, you did something wrong, you got in trouble badly. Like, you know, parents in my father would get arrested. You know what I mean? Like, if he
was
did
in America.
what he did, yeah. If I was in America and my father did what, I love my father, and my parents are good parents. I love my parents, but if I look at my parents back and I put my parents from that society and this society, I'm like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, but that's how it was. Can I look back on my father and be like, oh, my father was abusive? No, my father loved me. He gave me everything he could give me. He offered me everything he could offer me. You know, that's how the society was. Even my first coach, like, look, when I talk about my first coach and I talk about coaches I have, you know, I like my first coach. I love my first coach. When I talk about things that he did wrong, is because I want to point out the mistakes, understand, for others to not make that, understand, and people to see situations that can rely.
They can relate to.
Yes, understand, to not do the same mistakes. But even my coach, if I take my first coach and I bring me and him from socialist communist Romania 1980 to America 1990s or 1980s, same time, to put it that way, he will coach me different. Understand? He will be a very, very good coach. Like, even like as a human, like, you know, he taught me how to read, how to do math, how to do, at the same time, yeah, he slapped me, he sometimes swear at me, he, you know, but he did some things that are good, you know, but the society was
much stricter than
Yes.
here, and what was allowable of.
And then for me, the surprise was very big when I come to America and I find coaches behaving emotionally incorrect. Understand? Because the society is not like that. Like, the child doesn't walk in the gym and expect a coach to swear at him, no matter what the sport is, or slap them. They don't, because that doesn't happen at home, that doesn't happen in school, that doesn't happen anywhere in the American society. If as an adult you slap someone on the street, you get arrested, you go to jail for battery, you know, like, it's different. And then when the coach does it in America, yeah, it's like, for me, it's frustrated, because I look at it and I'm like, why you have this here, you know? And you have to look how many discussions you have. Like, she just said about Bella and Marta Caroli. They came here from Romania, communist Romania. And now you see, like, past years, you have complaints about their behavior, right? Some girls came out and they are like, okay, they was abusive, they said this, they did that, like that, right? But if you look at Bella and Marta Caroli, how they were in America, I'm going to be honest with you, they were angels. Like, if you compare with what they did in Romania, you know, then for them, they did good, but nobody else teach them more than that. Understand? Like, for example, when they came to America, the USA Gymnastics took Marta and Bella Caroli and sit them down and say, look, we know you are Nadia's Comaneci coach. You know that's how you do things in Romania, but in America, we don't do this. Understand? Doesn't fly. You can't do that. No. They took Marta and Bella Caroli, run on their talent and their knowledge about the sport. They make them build a system, right? They took all that knowledge, they run on it, they start making Olympic champion. They allow them to do things that was borderline illegal, right? Let's put it that way, in behavior. Maybe, I don't know, like when Bella called that girl a little bitch, he said it, right? Maybe then someone told him, like, okay, don't do that, you can't do it, right? And then he said that in an interview, that he called a little girl like how he said it, like a little.
He said it in a documentary that was made, but this is a phrase. Even though this sounds like a crazy phrase in English, it's a common phrase kind of in Romania, but it's not a derogatory one the way that we have it here. Can be, but
can be
cannot
used
be.
like a cute for like a little girl. You know what I mean, and especially at the time, like the girl was pretty and cute. The parent will call her like little, she's a little bitch. And that's what Bella did.
And he was trying to use it as a term of endearment. And he had no idea the way that it was going to come out here.
Think about how many kids he may cry, but...
And he recognized it later on, like older, like, oh my gosh, I said this, and now I can't believe I said that then, but I didn't know.
But you see,
what that comes out like.
I don't know the situation at the time, but did anybody at that time when he said it stop him nicely with a girl maybe and be like, okay, he didn't mean it that way. He's coming from a different culture, and explain the girl, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they didn't. They just like sweep it under the rug and be like, oh, we didn't hear it. Like, let's hope he's not going to do it again. Right. And nobody explained him, like, look, in America, you cannot use those phrases. Understand? Right. And that's where the problem is. Because, like, if you look at it, like, I know America becomes so successful in gymnastics, but it's so much dark behind that success. And shouldn't be. Because American society is not like that. Understand? It's not a society where we expect that type of behavior.
Especially because the child is looking at the gym kind of like their playground.
Yes.
They're not expecting at all for there to be any type of negative approach to them.
No.
And it's been like that for a long time.
And it's still like that. It's like, let's be honest, like it's not, they talk about like, oh, we changed. No, you don't change. It's not change. It's the same people that run the system. It's not.
And there's not many resources available to change. There's not enough, and it's not stringent enough.
Let's put it this way, like, let's look just at the Larry Nassar case now. How many of those USAG members that had to resign got actually suspended or banned because they was part of the cover-up on Larry Nassar case? And most of those members have gyms. They are gym owners, right? Then they are the same people running the system, understand? And that's not going to change. That's why my country declined the way it declined, because it never changed. The same people are there still today, you know.
Well, I think I want to go back to Mark's question of if you were aware what things were going to be like when you came here. There. But from my perspective, because of course that's how I met Michal was through coaching. So no, I can say looking at him, he wasn't aware at all of really what things were gonna, not at all, but a lot of things I have to explain not aware.
I was expecting that is not like in my country. Understand? Right. I was expecting that the kids are not forced to do, like, it's not like you come in the gym and you have to compete well, you have to win, you have to be a national champion, you have to go to the Olympics. I knew that it's like they have more freedom here, understand? And that's what I was looking for. I didn't expect really the system that I found.
Mm-hmm. I think
and the culture
socially, like, you were not expecting to the extent of what that means. Just like etiquette, regular social etiquette is just totally different. We are a little bit too lax in our etiquette, especially nowadays, whereas you were not like that in Romania. And of course, that affects greatly how you approach gymnastics, how you take things seriously or not. You know, and I think a lot of things were a culture shock to you, like just the fact that children here, you know, they a lot of times it's acceptable for them to talk back to their parents. So then they talk back to their coaches, which that doesn't happen in other societies, or they're just
like, let's say, ask permission to talk to my coach.
Yeah.
I think, coach, can I ask a question? I will be like, hoping that the question was a good question to not get slapped, you know, because it was not a good question. When you come in America and the kid come to me and pull my shirt, it's like, hey, dude, what's up?
Right. Yeah, that's a big difference. That's something that used to bother him a lot when he first came here. He's like, what's the matter? Like, they call me dude? I'm not a dude. I'm your coach. Like, he couldn't not grasp this concept. I'm like, they're not trying to be disrespectful. They don't really know that that's making you feel like they don't respect you. But that's just so different. Or just, you know, kids here can be careless with their belongings or with their hygiene, or just small details that is not that way in Eastern Europe. And then you just approach coming into the gym totally different. And you're level
but
of.
one second, but
Go
you see,
ahead.
even for me, like in the beginning, nobody explained me those differences.
Right. That's what I'm
Understand?
trying to say. So a lot of times he'd look at things and just totally not understand them. You know, we talk about a lot how much he has been able to evolve his level of connection with the kids as his English has improved, but also just spending time within a different culture that allows you to, because it's not so strict and it's not like a machine of making the best gymnast in the world.
I'm the machine. You know the movie?
Yeah, movie just came out. It's
Yeah.
really good. Anyways, you know, he was able to connect with them on a deeper level, which is what he really always wanted, and part of why he came to this country, because you're not really allowed to do that in Romania. It's just the child's the product, they need to perform well, and that's it. Whereas here it's so free that you have time to spend time talking to your
Look,
athlete.
one second.
Go ahead.
Interrupt you here to understand how it works in my country, and I think today is the same system. I had to give I don't know the word in English, but you have like the club, because it's a governmental club. They give you a norm of medals that you have to win at the end of the year, the season. Understand? Then it's like you are in a
A
manufacturer.
quota.
Yeah, you are in a manufacturer, right? And Tesla wants to sell this year 10,000 cars, right? At the beginning of the season, the year, my club will give me a norm. Will be like, okay, this is the number of medals that we want you to get. Then for me as a coach, when I walk in the gym, that kid didn't represent a human really. Was the norm that I had to achieve, understand? There was a product, was like a legit product, like in a manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the difference is in America. I don't have.
I assume that your coach would have quotas given to them by the government.
Yes, you know, then obviously like they have a different behavior and a different approach. But in America, like I don't have that pressure. For example, I own my own gym. The only quota, yeah, I put on me is myself, and it's not on the number of medals. It's like the personal achievement of my athletes. I look at my athletes in the team and I say, okay, this season I want this girl to be this way. I want this girl to move to this level. I want this girl to achieve this. Like I look at them individually. I don't look at it and I'm like, oh, I want this season to have in my gym now 20 more banners with first place and 20 more with third place and 20 more with second place.
No. Some coaches in America
but they do that. That's what about not some. They do
many do that.
That matters. Yeah. Yes. The trophy that you put on the wall, the banner that you put on the wall, and that's what they look for. And then the child becomes, that team becomes a product. Understand? That's why those mistakes are made in America when you hear kids in America being like, oh, my coach was abusive. It's most of the time in America, it's verbal abuse, to be honest. It's psychological abuse, understand? Not physical abuse. Because for the physical abuse, like I told you, you get arrested very fast in American society.
You see, it still happens a lot in America. A lot of verbal abuse.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And like psychological abuse, of course, happen. And you can see it. Like, you kidding me? Like I told you, you go to competition and see just the coach demeanor, and that's abusive. And I say, like, when I see a coach looking at that, like, without like this dislike,
disgust almost.
Yes, you know, when the athlete didn't perform well, and they're like, and they walk away, and like you can see it at competition. And I told you in the past episode, what bothers me is that sometimes you see this type of behavior at a low level competition. Understand? When the stake is not even high, the kid is an inexperienced little girl, or is someone who is 13 years old, 14 years old, competing level 7, and she's struggling, and the coach looks at her like, you know what I mean? Like, no, like give that girl a little bit of hope. Like your job is not to make her feel worse more than she's already feeling. Understand?
Yeah.
And that's what bothers me. Because, okay, like when you compete world championships, Olympic games, and the stake is very high, you can, sometimes the coach can have a reaction, understand, where they're like, oh, I don't know, you fall and they put their hands in their head, or like, it's a lot of pressure there. Like there, it's a different ballgame. But when you go to compete regular competitions for recreational purpose more than elite level, and the coaches have that behavior, I really don't like it. I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, you have actually no reason.
Irrational behavior.
This is not Olympic Games.
Parents don't understand when they pick a school or a gym to take the kids to, because they probably don't have anything to compare. But what we're showing here
Mm-hmm.
in this
Oh,
these
that's
podcasts is that your experience and has brought you to a place where you see a different kind of coach. You want to be a different kind of coach. So that's what I really like when we have these discussions, that you bring out the real heart of a coach and how you inspire as well as train people.
Yeah, I mean, we both started coaching because we realized the impact that it makes on a child, not just athletically, emotionally. And that's why, as much as we came from different systems and we love gymnastics, that's really what connected the two of us, is realizing that same passion that we held on reaching a child emotionally, and the massive impact that you have on their life, and the blessing that you have to really help shape them as a person and make them feel great about themselves, while you're interacting with them within the sport that you all commonly love. And this is our primary focus in Illuminating Champions and podcasts and future workshops that we're going to be starting, is really taking that aspect of coaching to heart, and coaching with that being your primary reasoning, and then expanding your knowledge of skill teaching and things like that. But you have to realize impact. And that's what I think a lot of coaches forget, when they become egotistical, or just in the gymnastics culture worldwide, that was what was forgotten. It was a product based system, and many people, like we just said, they still coach that way.
And
Go
a
ahead,
lot
sorry.
of coaches that come from outside the country, like especially like Asia, Eastern Europe, you know, they come here, they're very knowledgeable coaches, but
Right.
if you go to competition and you watch them, or you see the parents how they look at them, they look at them like they are very tough coaches, very, mean.
Mm-hmm.
They are not really mean, like if you look, like, are they mean because, like, you have someone, for example, that she's gonna tell your daughter, like, very seriously, like, oh, you're not good, you can't do this, you're lazy, right? But she just said it. She's coming from a place where her coach would slap her if she did the same thing that child did. Now she just told the girl that she has to work harder, right? In her head, or in his head, that coach, he didn't do anything wrong. But for the American society, the expression that they had, the way they express themselves to the athlete is wrong. But nobody explains them that. Understand? And then they just get stuck in that type of behavior that makes kids uncomfortable and makes kids hate the sport. And parents look at the sport like, oh, this sport is full of coaches that are abusive. But not all of them are abusive. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know how to behave different because they come from societies that are not like American society. And nobody gives them the tools to change either. Like, for me, like, the only reason I learn English is because I want to learn English. Understand? But when they brought me to America, I had 4 words, and they put me to work with 40 girls. Then nobody cared that I said things wrong, because I tried to explain myself and I said something that came out not the right way, right? And the child got upset. But nobody explained that child, for example, like, oh, he didn't mean it that way. Then they didn't explain me either. They just berate me for it. Like, oh, you can't say that, you can't do that. And then I'm looking, I'm like, why? I don't understand why I can't say that you shouldn't do that. I said, but nobody told me, like, okay, you can say that, but you can say it this way, because if you say it this way, sounds a little bit not very nice. Like, you can't use those phrases that way in English.
I want to interrupt you a little bit for a second, because when I first met him, he was very frustrated living here. He wanted to leave.
I want to leave,
and it wasn't because he wasn't coaching to, the most elite level of gymnastics that he was
the level I was coaching
in Romania, and then coming here it was a lower level. It was because of things like this. He was getting so frustrated because, besides he had limited English and was trying very hard to learn, like, while on the job with no support, he couldn't understand these interactions that he was trying to have a positive interaction, and because of a lack of language, things would come across the wrong way, or he'd say something and the demeanor or the tone or just the example given,
look how I talk even now, like, my accent is heavy.
It came out differently. Like when we first started coaching together, I used to have to tell the kids in the beginning, like when he's talking to you, he speaks direct and quick, and he's going to tell you exactly what he wants you to do in that moment. He's not yelling at you. Like just, and they were like, okay. And it would take them a minute because at the time, that's the amount of language that he had and the way he would come across. Now it's different because he's
Now I
been
don't
here
shut
for
up.
a
I
while.
speak.
But in the beginning,
That's why I do the podcast. I like to talk.
it was like alarming to them because we're very, I don't want to say gentle, but a lot of times things are sugar coated, or you really are paying attention to how things are said. I mean, hopefully some people don't pay attention at all, but hopefully you are. Whereas him, he really only had the command of what needed to be done right then. And it was
It was more like a
unintentionally colder relationship. So that was hard for him. And that was hard because nobody explained to the kids too that he's not trying to be cold with you. He cannot express himself.
Look, I'm going to give you an example. Like I was coaching for a while in America, maybe like 6-7 months. And the girls, those little girls, they was like 8-9 years old, like I think level 5. They was getting ready for competition. And I was coaching them, I think it was on bars.
I was going to say the story.
And then you want to say the story?
Say
it. I never say it.
I was across the gym, so I was hearing it. It was a group that we coached together. And he had them on bars, and they were cheering for each other, and they were pretending it was competition.
I make them to pretend it's a competition, and each of them will go to do a routine, and it was like in competition.
That went, she fell on a simple skill, and then she didn't really have her best bar routine, and the kids naturally were trying to cheer her up and like encourage her to keep going, and they're like, it's okay, keep going.
No,
like,
they said it's okay, good job.
Yeah, it's okay, good job. And he let her.
I stopped
her in the middle of the routine, and he turned around and looked at them, and they were like 8, and he's like, no, it's not okay. And they were like, what? Like, they were shocked, and they loved him, this group of kids, but they were not expecting this reaction. And he's like, it's not okay, she just fell. And they were like, okay. Like they didn't say anything but I could see in their face, and I'm like, oh goodness, like here we go. Like she didn't mean to fall, like she didn't fall on purpose. Then, we're trying to tell her like, it's all right, just
but you see, like everybody in the gym, like the coaches and the gym owner, everybody like berating
me. He was trying to explain. He did explain himself after, like, you need to tell her, like, keep going, because she needs to focus on what she's doing and do it the right way. You can't tell her it's okay and good job because you fell, because it's not a good job when you fall.
And she could get, I explained it, like she could get injured, like she put her hands down on the mat, she could like pop out her elbow, like, but you see, like the adult coaches, the coaches in the gym, everybody was like, oh, he's mean, even the gym owner was like, oh, you can do that. I'm like, I didn't understand what I can do, because I'm like, I just explained those girls that it's not okay to fail like that. Like, it's not okay to not pay attention, to not get injured. Like, in my head, I did my job correctly, understand? But I couldn't understand
their perception,
the perception of it, the way I use the words, understand?
Sure.
Where today, like, if something like that happened, I have a different
more language
level of English too. Yes,
right.
And I can explain different, you know what I mean? And I'm not that stressed to speak either. Those are other things with foreign coaches coming to America, because besides they don't have the language. Like when you come from Asia or Eastern Europe, English is not the main language. Obviously, we have to learn it, right? And then when you have few words as an adult, it's very, very stressful to speak, and it's embarrassing at the same time, because you are an adult and you cannot put your words together. Understand? And then it's very, like, for me, like in that moment, I had to speak very fast, right? Because happens like this, and I have few words, and I have to make sure that I make the phrase understandable for the kids, understand?
Right.
Then obviously, like when I speak very fast with 3 words, it's going to come out, no, it's not okay. I said, because that's all I knew, and I said it fast. But in my head, it was nothing mean. I didn't, I didn't berate anybody. I didn't use mean words.
No, you were trying to teach them a good lesson.
I was trying to give them a positive lesson out of that mistake,
Wow.
But I didn't know, and nobody taught me. The only reason I learned those things and I changed it is because I was personally interested in, like, I saw the kids' reaction on my own.
Right.
And then at the end of that practice, for example, I asked her, like, okay, why they have that reaction? And then she had to sit down with me and explain me, like, okay, look, this, understand, like, you cannot say it this way because it comes out this way. Like, when you said it that way, it was sounding very snotty. But for me, I didn't know. I had no idea, you know.
It's really interesting that this topic about the athletic culture shift, because um, it's a primary, or it's a very big thing in gymnastics. You know, a lot of foreign coaches, not the same in baseball or football and all those other things that kids
No,
might
those
do.
are
No, that's
American sports,
American.
because those are American sports,
Right.
understand?
But when you
But when
get
you talk about gymnastics, that's a sport that was brought to America.
right, that's very interesting.
And the foreign coaches build a system, understand?
So this,
Yeah.
That's why I said, like, you have, you have foreign coaches that came here, you know, and they build a system, and they, by the end, like we talk about Bella, right? And Marta, and at the end of their career, everybody attacked them for, like, oh, she said this, she did that. But the same thing, I go back to it, the system didn't change them. Understand? Nobody in the system gives them the tools. And that's what I tried to explain today, that the gym owners that brings in foreign coaches, they should help those coaches to understand the society, and the society change, shift here. Understand?
right,
And how to approach the kids based on the American society, and not allow the coach to behave that way just because that coach is a good coach, is bringing the level of gymnastics in that gym high. And then the number of the banners that we took, right, you want to put a corner to have it on the wall, it's getting higher, understand? And that's why they accept it. That's why they accept Bella and Marta to do that, or Brechtan, or I don't know, Chow, or other coach that came from outside and they had some problems like this, you know. And even in America, it's sad because you have your own American coaches that are like that. Look at Maggie Haney. No, she had Lori Hernandez, and she worked with Riley McCusker, and she created Riley McCusker, actually. Let's put it that way. She is the one who made her a champion. But no, she got suspended 8 years. And she was the youngest coach at the Olympics in 2016. Then think about, at that time, she was already emotionally abusive with Lori Hernandez. Where did she learn that?
right.
Because she was not living in Romania, China, Russia, Bulgaria, or other country like that. She was living in America. She was living in a free society. Then she learned from the system that she was part of it, because she learned coaching in America. She learned coaching around the USA gymnastics environment, right?
Right.
Then when she go to the camp in Texas with Lori Hernandez, when Lori Hernandez was 12 years old, and she yelled at Lori in the gym inappropriately. Yes. Did anybody sit her down and say, no, you can't do that?
Right.
No. She saw the other coaches doing the same thing, the older coaches, understand?
Yep.
She saw Bella, she saw Marta, she saw this one, that one, right? Because even that, like, when you go to the national camp and all those girls are complaining, Marta and Bella Caroli, they was the head coach. They was the kind of the manager, right? But those girls come there with their personal coach. Then how can their personal coach accept Marta and Bella to talk like that to their athlete? Because if I brought my athlete to the camp, and I like Marta and Bella Caroli because obviously they are superstars in my country and I grew up with them, right? And I'm not going to look back and erase the history of what they did in my country just because whatever happened in past with them, right? I will tell Bella in his face, no, you don't tell my athlete that. You don't talk to my athlete like that. You know, you come to me, you talk to me. If my athlete did something wrong, you tell me. That's why I'm the coach. I'm there to represent my athlete, to protect my athlete. Then the personal coaches, the American personal coaches, where they were, they accepted. Why they accepted? Because of the ego. You see, we go back to the ego.
Yeah.
Why the American system accepted? Because of the ego. Because they was making an Olympic champion. They was making that gold medal that everybody wants. And then the personal coach, look at Marta berating his athlete, and now he knows that that athlete is going to perform better because she's scared or she's afraid or whatever emotion she has that's going to push her to do whatever he couldn't get her to do by force, right? And now she's going to win a gold medal in Olympics. And the personal coach just put his head down, turn the head on the side, and be like, I didn't see that.
It's a very recent discussion, this notion within USA Gymnastics of changing a win at all cost culture. It's very recent. It's less than 10 years old that this is being discussed. So it was allowed to happen for 30 years before that was ever mentioned, that we can't coach that way. And I think growing up in this country, that should have been discussed a lot sooner.
Yes.
Especially because our society was not so stringent and not so strict. And we did have educational resources, but they're not used and they're not enforced within the system. There is no psychological training required or provided to coaches besides the skill training. And then it's like you really have anybody coaching your child, and it's up to the coach to really want to apply themselves to what they're doing. And gymnastics is a catastrophic sport. You know, the risk of catastrophic injury is possible. Then it's very important who coaches your child.
I survive on
and
it is very
yeah,
high.
and
doesn't matter the level of your athletic skill.
It's physically catastrophic, but it's also emotionally catastrophic. Yes. Because you're dealing with adult-sized emotions as a child. So it's just so important that coaches are provided the right tools in how to approach their athletes. And that's something that has missed from our system.
Keep your idea, because you see here, I'm going to go back to Maggie Haney. Mm-hmm. Right? They suspend Maggie Haney, like I told you. Like if you look at Maggie Haney's discussions today, what are the discussions about Maggie Haney is the fact that she's still coaching, right? And she's coaching out of USA Gymnastics system, understand? But USA Gymnastics just suspend her. They didn't give her any tool to redeem herself, understand?
Rehabilitate
There's
herself.
no rehabilitation program that she has to go through and be part of it and then be I don't know, like a speaker for like anti-abuse and no, they just give her 8-year suspension. After the 8 years, she's going to be back. How do you think she's going to coach?
There's no preventative measure for it happening again. It's just a punishment.
If she doesn't have the tools to change that because she wants to change it, she's going to be angry. She's going to be upset. And she's going to be maybe more mean with the kids that don't perform well, because now she's going to look back at the fact that she got in trouble because of her athletes, right? And who she's going to punish? She's going to punish the athletes, right? Then the system has to help those coaches too. You can't just like suspend them and ban them and throw them out,
right?
Because they're going to come back into the system and then they're going to be the same way. It's like someone goes to jail for a crime,
right?
But you don't rehabilitate them in jail. You just put them in a cell and you keep them locked down with all the criminals. And
the same exact thing.
They come out of jail, they're going to do the same thing. That's why they're like that. Because the jail system actually is not rehabilitating them. Mm-hmm. Understand? Oh. They go in jail, they come out and they commit a crime, they go back.
Well, I know you have a vision. That's what you said. You have a vision for helping part of the reinvention of the industry due to your experience and what you've learned going through it as a coach. And so I'm really sure that you'll make a big difference in the reinvention of gymnastics.
I don't think so. I can look. I'm going to be honest. Like I'm not going to reinvent it. I'm not God. Understand? But I try as much as I can through my knowledge, that humble knowledge that I have, to
have a positive
to do something to try to change the system. Understand? Because it can't go this way forever. Because at one point, people not going to bring their kids to sports. Mm-hmm. That's why people, even today in America, if you go to make like a public opinion, what you call that?
Yeah.
Like
a survey?
Like a survey, right? And ask people, they are afraid to put their kids in gymnastics. Special poll, yeah. Like especially girls, right? You have Larry Nassar, you have Bella, you have John Gatter, what's his name? Gatter. You have the other guy that killed himself before that. Same thing with child pornography. Like you have a lot of them. And at one point it's like, okay, when you finish it, when you take everybody out, when you clean the system, right? But then you look at it, and then you have, even today, you have at the national team level, they have, what's his name? Alfan, right?
He's like secretly under investigation and had two gymnasts die under his coaching
and the guy rehabilitated himself. Like they have 3 girls that broke their neck. is I don't know how many complaints against him. Then USA Gymnastics tell the parents that, like, we can't do nothing now because we have the Olympics, and you allow it just because you want that gold medal. We go back to the same ego. That's why the culture shift has to happen.
Right.
Like, no, I don't care he goes to the Olympics. If the man is guilty of doing something wrong,
Right.
I don't care how big of a name he is.
Yeah.
Like, treat him exactly how you will treat a coach that's from New Hampshire and has
10 kids in their gym.
Yes.
Yeah.
No big name. And he, I don't know, said something wrong to a girl and the mother complained about it and you ban the coach. Do the same thing with that guy.
Yeah, it has to be an ecosystem. We're going to do a full episode on safe sport and things, and how there needs to be really an equal and better system of justice for coaches in order to really help coaches and help athletes and protect both of them, because
and also,
both need protection.
Also has to be a system that when gyms bring foreign coaches in America,
needs to be
they have to help them. There has to be like a system that helps those coaches integrate. Understand? Because a lot of those coaches get lost. They come here with so much potential, and because they don't understand the society, they don't understand the system, sometimes they come out wrong too. And then they just shut down, and then you don't use the value. They lose that value.
Yeah, you don't use their potential.
You don't use it because,
as a coach.
Look, even for me, if I didn't have the intention in me to change, understand, to learn how this society works, I will hate it. I will leave America. She just told you, like, I didn't like it here. I hate it because I couldn't understand it. Although I want to be here, I didn't want to coach. I left Romania. I didn't want to coach in Romania. I left. I came to America for that, but nobody helped me till I start looking for myself. You know what I mean? And I was lucky enough to meet her, and she helped me with that. Because that's why I started understanding things, is because of her, because she took time to explain me. But the people that brought me here and supposed to be the ones that introduced me to the system, they did nothing. Understand?
Yeah.
And a lot of coaches are in that situation, that come here and they get lost because they don't understand, they don't know how to behave, and nobody helps them.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think in tying everything together today, I know this is a little bit of a vast topic, but we're going to go deeper into it in a series of episodes because it's very large and very broad, and there's a lot of nitty-gritty things to get into with the
And
abuses of coaching and that need to be said.
Yes, with honesty, like, because otherwise, like, it's not going to change.
Then I want to leave everybody on a positive note, as always. I want to leave everybody with some tips for creating luminous moments, because that is why we are doing this. That is why we are speaking. So we can look back on experiences we had, positive and negative, and just transform them into totally positive future moments for everybody, for athletes and for coaches, and just spread a little light. So our tip today for coaches is to don't be distant minded. Try to place yourself in your athlete's shoes at all times, no matter their level of athletic capacity. You need to remember that they are a human first, and what they're feeling like in that moment, especially when they're struggling, especially when they are not your most athletic athlete. Really, really care what they're going to feel like in your approach towards them and in their moment that they're feeling their weakest.
And be 1 second.
Go
and
ahead.
like I tell my athletes all the time, and I said it in past episode, I always tell my athletes, I want to be your coach in your worst moment, not the best moment, because the best moment, it's easy. When you are a champion, everybody wants to take a picture of the champion. Then for the coaches, be the coach in the worst moment of your athlete. Be their coach, not just in the best moment. Understand? Look to be the coach actually for the worst moment, because in the best moment, it's easy. It's natural to be there. Understand? The athlete's going to want you there. The family's going to want you there. The audience is going to want you there, right? But be the coach for that athlete that struggled the most. Be the coach for the athlete in their worst moment. Right. And if that athlete feels comfortable in the worst moment of their career to come to you as a coach, you are a good coach. That's
Right.
when you ought to go coach.
Right. And then for parents, talk to your athletes all the time after practice. Talk to them about their interactions with their coaches. They should feel that they can open up to you and tell you anything that's going on, and listen to what they're saying. And remember their interpretation of what's being said to them as a child. It doesn't always come across in their mind the way that it's said, because they're children. Their perception is different than when it's adult to adult. So try to explain to them at home. And then, of course, if something is off, talk to the coach, talk to the club owner, whatever the situation
One
is.
second.
Go
Talk
ahead.
to the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the club owner doesn't coach the child and you talk to the club owner, it's not going to be the same explanation as you talk to the coach. Because I know that from my prior experience. My own experience.
Your personal
experience. Yes, my personal experience. Coming to America, when even with the story with no is not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the same thing. Like the gym owner didn't have the parents have a conversation with me about that. He just maybe go in the not maybe he did go in the lobby, and when the parents are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that," it's like, "Oh yeah, he's from Romania." That's how they have there. That was the explanation. Understand?
Sure.
Where if I will sit down with the parents and the kids, and I'll be like, "No, I didn't mean it that way," and help me to explain, then the kids will look at me different. The parents maybe will look at me with a different eye too, and I will look at myself different, and I will understand different and faster how to correctly interact with the athlete. Understand? And that's why it's very important for the parents to talk to the coach directly that said whatever they said to the child, and figure out the situation correctly. And if the coach didn't understand and did it without intention, then help also the coach learn to not do it, because even the coaches need coaches. Understand? And the best coach for a coach is the parent, because the parents knows the best how the child feels. That's why I tell my parents all the time, and we said it in the past episode, I talk about it, and I said that gymnastics is a personal sport. The relation between the coach and the parent has to be like a family relation, when they can talk to each other very openly and fairly, right? Factually correct, to help the child. And yes, to go talk to the coach and talk correctly, and try to understand what the coach meant, and try to make the coach understand what your child felt, because that's going to help the coach to make that adjustment to treat that child correctly for the child. Because you can say something to one athlete, understand, and the athlete takes it like, "Oh, that was a joke, was funny," but you can say the same jokingly thing to some other one that's going to take it different, like, it's not fun, it was disrespectful, then you have to make the difference, and you have to understand, and the only way to understand is the parent talking to you.
Their communication, right? And then lastly, our tip for athletes is to be brave and speak up if something doesn't feel right, to your parent or to your coach, even directly. If your coach says something that doesn't make you feel well, or you feel like they're trying to make you feel bad, that's not normally what they're trying to do. So you need to let someone know that, right, and they should not be doing that. So you need to let someone know that happened, and then respectfully, and then you can get to the root, like we just talked about, and see if it just came across wrong, or then, of course, in the worst case scenario, if it wasn't intentional, and then the correct steps can be taken to fix the problem. And the coach, of course, should be penalized in that case.
So, yeah, but I think it should be very rare those days when the coach
it should not be intentional.
Should not do intentional things to hurt anybody's feelings.
So
if you do it intentionally, you shouldn't coach, because then that means that your ego is so big that that's what runs your profession. It's your ego,
Right. Exactly. So we want to thank everybody for listening in today, and we want to thank Mark for helping us with this episode.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Illuminating Champions. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for our next episode.